Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. It's Janet and I hope you're having a great day. I've got a little tutorial today. This is going to show you how I made this card from scratch using Cricut Design Space. And I'll show you how I lay out the card and figure out the pieces I'm going to need at the right sizes so that when I cut the card everything looks correctly proportioned, and it really takes the guesswork out of knowing whether the card's going to work or not because it's all laid out before I even begin to cut it. This makes it all much easier. These cute little monsters are from Eyelet Outlet and you can find them in the Eyelet Outlet store. I'll go ahead and link that and the glitter washi tape I used in my video description so you can find them. So I'm going to begin this in Design Space. Well, I thought it would be helpful to kind of show you how I design a card while I'm on Design Space. And it all started in this card with this piece right here. Now this is designed to be strictly a cut and then you would piece it all together. However, because the letters on here, Monsters On in particular, would be rather small in a small format card, I decided to change that up a bit. So I'm going to ungroup this so you can see what I mean. There's actually 3 different pieces to this sentiment, and this initially was all a piecing piece as well, or a piecing die cut as well. So if I would unflatten this, which means you take it away from being print then cut to back to just a regular cut, you can see over here on the right side all the individual letters and the pieces that would have made this. And I just think that that probably wouldn't work real great because of the sizing. So I decided to make that a flattened piece by choosing flatten. And that then makes this a print then cut. However, this and this is still a regular die cut that is going to be done, and I'll use my own cardstock for that. Now over here I've used 2 sections or 3 pieces of cardstock that I'm going to cut. Right here on the top I've got some purple, and I've got another strip of black in here. The 1/8 of an inch purple stripes on each side here on the top and bottom, actually that represents the 1/8 inch wide purple glitter washi tape that I'm going to use. So I get an idea of how that's going to look when I have the card constructed by doing that. These little rectangles represent the brads I'm going to use, and they are sized approximately to what they are. There's a couple large ones, in other words they're tall, so I sized this one at a 1/2 inch wide by 1 inch tall. And then these smaller ones are also 1/2 inch wide, but they're only a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch tall, sorry. I also found these print then cut spaceships, which I thought would be fun to add to this card as balloons. And so my intention is I'm going to have strings going from these down to the little monsters holding them. So it's like they have their balloons for the parade. Now some of the cuts on these may not work out so well, like these little antennas, because they're so tiny, but that's okay. If they don't work out, it's fine. I'm mainly interested in the larger piece because that's what we're going to use as our balloon feature. So hopefully that makes sense when I put it all together. Alright, so now I'm getting ready to cut it, and one thing I've got to do is get rid of stuff. So this represents my card base that I'm going to use. And actually I know now that I'm probably not going to use yellow because there really is no other yellow in this other than in a couple of these spaceships. So instead I'm going to make this orange, I think, to match this orange strip and the orange brad. There's an orange monster. So, but you know, because this is the card base, I'm not going to cut that. I'm also not going to cut these 1/8 of an inch strips because that's washi tape. I'm also not going to cut these little rectangles because again they represent the brads I'm going to use, so obviously I wouldn't want to cut those either. So these are what I've got left. I'm going to hit make it, and we'll see here that I have the print then cut, and then as we go down we've got the black, the orange, the blue piece, and the purple piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do these print then cuts, and I'll come back when everything is ready to start assembling. Alright, well here are all the cuts that I made, and this is my card base, which I made outside of Design Space. I didn't need Design Space for that. I have my print then cuts. This is the Monsters on Parade and also the little spaceships. You can see how It did that little bit of bleed, so it would be nice all the way to the edge. And they turned out really nicely. I'm very happy with those, even though they're small, especially those little spaceships. Now I also have 3 strips that are going to go on my card, as you recall. The big purple one I'm going to emboss with this design from Sizzix and Tim Holtz. It reminds me of a stage, and these guys are theatrical if nothing else, right? So I'm going to use that. And then the top part of my card with the black, I'm going to use this kind of bubble circle embossing folder for that from Cuttlebug and Provo Crafts. So I'll be back when those are run through. And voila, here we are. You can't really make out those circles in this shot, but believe me, they're there and you can see them in the pictures. The embossing with the kind of the curtain worked really nicely. Now this is going to be my strip where I'm going to put my little monsters on. So I've got to space these on and make them similar. So I find where that prong is, and then I'm going to go to the far right side. And I'm going to follow where that prong is with my white gel pen here and make a little dot. And that's approximately where I need to put the hole for this brad. Now I'm going to go to the far left side and kind of space it similarly like I did on the right. And that way I have these two kind of figured out. Now by putting my brads above the dots, I kind of have an idea of where they're going to go. And then I'm going to use a larger punch too. This punch is much larger than I need for the brad size, but because it's a larger hole, I've got some wiggle room up and down and sideways, so I can adjust where they are a little bit more than I would if I had the smallest punch hole. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start putting them in. And even this guy, I figured I needed to move him up a little bit, so I just punched with my pick a little bit more on the top of that, and that allows me to move him even a little bit higher. So I was a little off on this one, but that's okay. These will not be in a perfect straight line, but they are, after all, standing, and hardly anybody stands in a straight line, right? So their feet can be a little bit off. It'll be fine. All right, so now I'm going to put together the banner. These were the 2 pieces that I cut, and I'm just going to use my art glitter glue for this. And I am going to just put this on flat at this point. And what I like the art glitter glue for is it's very easy to move your pieces around. So if you have a border like this, you have a little time to wiggle things around to get it right. I tend to have problems with that, so I appreciate having that wiggle time before it sets hard enough and won't move anymore. So as you noticed, I did glue all that together without any dimensions. So what I'm going to do next is add that dimension by putting these foam dots on the back of my sentiment. So I'm going to give you a little confession about these foam dots because I've had them for years. It might be 10 years. I'm not kidding you. I've been recently cleaning out my stash of things, and I ran across these. And although they're not really my most favorite in the world, I am going to use them up and clean out some of my things. I need to use up stuff that I have. So I'm on that kick right now, so that's why I picked those, but I don't know what brand they are or anything. At this point, I'm ready to start working on my card base, and I've got my glitter tape here from Eyelet Outlet. And I'm going to start preparing that glitter tape to go on my card. So I know that my mats on this card are 4 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut an edge off so I have a nice straight and clean edge on my washi tape. And then I'm going to pull this out to the 4-inch length because I know again that that's how wide that mat is going to be, and that's how wide or how far I want the glitter washi tape to go. I also want both pieces that I'm going to use on this border exactly the same length. So this is just a way to do it, and since it's a temporary adhesive, it goes on my board here pretty nicely and easily. There's all kinds of ways to do this. This may be too much work for you. It is kind of putsy, I'll admit to it, but I have a little bit of OCD and I really want things to be straight and the same length. That's just me. So I will go through a little extra effort to do that, where others would be like, yeah, it's good enough. And it probably is good enough, but it just bothers me. That's what OCD does to you. Be glad you don't have it if you don't have it. I don't have it terrible, but it's bad enough. So I'm going to first lay down this first piece of washi tape at the bottom. And again, I kind of know where this all needs to go because remember, I had it all figured out in Design Space. Now my next item is going to be this strip of my little monsters. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some glitter glue there as well. And back to the design on Design Space, I will usually keep that design up on my computer where I'm working so I can refer back to it and I can see what the spacing looks like there. And then all I have to do is pretty much replicate it when I'm actually putting my pieces together. I really find designing with Design Space is really easy to do. And again, I love that I can figure out what I'm going to place where before I ever cut anything. And I know that I'm not wasting my time or my cardstock because I know I'm going to like the finished look. If I like it on the screen, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to like it in the finished card. So it's just a great way to add some confidence to what you've put together. So next, of course, is going to be my second strip of washi tape. And I'll just put that on, butting up to the black strip with my monsters. And there's my OCD again because it doesn't line up exactly right. So I've got to take it off and redo it. There we go. That looks so much better to me. Yay. It's a curse. So next I'm going to be placing the other 2 strips that I previously embossed earlier. And I'm going to lay them out just like that. And again, here you see that my edges along those mats are pretty good. Again, because of that designing ahead of time and knowing exactly what sizes I'm going to need in order to make that border around the card mat be perfect. All right, so that's down. Now I can put on my last piece. And I'm just going to move around this sentiment to make sure it covers up the space between the 2 pieces. And so I kind of know where that's going to go and where I need to put my black cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and put that down. Looking good. You can see the embossing a little bit better in this shot for some reason. All right, so now I can put on that sentiment. I want to make sure I get it right side up and just set the sentiment in there so that it's about 1/3 of the way down and hides the little gap between the 2 pieces of cardstock. I could have made my black cardstock a little bigger, but when I put it out on Design Space, I knew that it was going to lay across it that way, so I just didn't bother to make it bigger. I suppose I could have to avoid any mistakes, and that's certainly something to consider. But in this case, I didn't. So I had previously put a little glue dot behind each of these spaceships, which I want to be used as the balloons for the little monsters below, or the aliens, whatever. I'm calling them monsters in this case, but maybe alien monsters. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. So we've got it here ready to go. Now I need my strings, and I've got some, it's really just elastic from the Dollar Tree that I picked up along the way. I don't know if they still sell it or not, but that's where I got this particular string. I'm going to use a glue dot to secure the string underneath the spaceship. So I'll just pick that off with my tool and tuck it underneath each of the spaceships. And there was enough room to do that, even though I had a bit of foam tape under there. And then I'm going to tuck the other end underneath the arm of each of the monsters. Once I get it kind of in place, I'm going to pull up like I just did there so that it's not a perfectly straight line with the string. That way it looks a little bit more interesting, and also it gives a sense kind of having motion or movement. The one nice thing about this elastic string is that it has some body to it, and it will hold its shape a little better without having to put glue or anything under it. So you notice that after I tuck it in on both the balloon and then on the arm, I can pull up on that string and it will kind of just by itself form a little bit of an arc or a loop, just like that. And if I had string, I would have to probably glue it down with a little bit of art glitter glue to make it stay. But this elastic will just do that by itself and it'll stay in that shape. So it's kind of fun to use for balloon strings. I've used it in many cards over time. Well, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you so that you can start using Design Space if you have a Cricut machine to put together your own designs before you go ahead and cut them. And speaking of your own designs and card making, we have just opened at Eyelet Outlet a new Facebook page for Eyelet Outlet fans. You can go over there and we'd love you to post the cards and scrapbook layouts and any other projects you've been doing with your Eyelet Outlet products. I have the link to that Facebook fan page in my video description, so please go there, click on it, like the page, and start posting your work. We're super excited to see what kinds of things you guys are making out there. Well, that's it for me today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon. And also, before you go, I'd sure appreciate you giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to this channel. Make sure you click on the bell so you get notifications of all future videos as well. And thank you so much for being here. Talk to you later. Bye.